All right, today we're jumping into one of the best finance books out there, Morgan Housel's bestseller, The Psychology of Money. We're going to distill the biggest lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness that have made this book an absolute must-read.
So what's the core idea? Well, Housel's main argument is that being good with money has very little to do with how smart you are or how well you can build a spreadsheet. Instead, it's almost all about psychology. It's about your behavior, the stories you tell yourself, and those so-called soft skills.
And this comparison just perfectly captures that idea. On one side, you've got Ronald Reed, a janitor who quietly saved what he could and died with a net worth of over $8 million. And on the other, you have Richard Foscone, a Harvard-educated finance executive who went completely bankrupt. I mean, that story just forces you to ask the question, right? If a fancy education and a high-flying career don't guarantee financial success, then what does? What was the real difference between these two men?
And here it is, the answer straight from Housel himself. Financial success is a soft skill, not a hard science. It's driven way more by your behavior, things like your patience, your humility, your discipline, than it is by your raw intelligence.
Okay, so let's dive into the first huge lesson from the book. It draws this really powerful line between the skills it takes to build wealth and the skills it takes to actually keep it. Housel argues that getting rich and staying rich are two completely different things. In fact, they often require total opposite mindsets.
You know, getting rich often requires taking big risks. It requires a ton of optimism about the future. It's the mindset of a speculator like Jesse Livermore, who famously made an absolute fortune betting against the market in 1929.
But staying rich, that's a whole different ballgame. That requires humility. It requires a healthy dose of fear. A bit of paranoia that it could all disappear tomorrow. And it requires frugality. It's the opposite of risk-taking. And the crazy thing is, Jesse Livermore's own story proves this point. His overconfidence led him to take bigger and bigger risks until he lost everything.
So, the most crucial takeaway here is that the number one skill for long-term success is just survival. Staying in the game long enough to let compounding work its magic is so much more important than chasing some huge, risky return that could wipe you out completely.
And this whole idea of survival leads us straight to one of the most destructive forces in finance, that endless, hungry appetite for just a little bit more.
See, Housel argues that one of the most critical financial skills, but one we almost never talk about, is knowing when to say, that's enough. Without that, your own ambition can become your worst enemy.
This quote just frames the idea perfectly. The author, Joseph Heller, was at a party when his friend, Kurt Vonnegut, pointed out that their billionaire host made more money in a single day than Heller had made from his famous novel Catch-22 in its entire lifetime. Heller's reply was pure genius. Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough.
Just think about Rajat Gupta, former CEO of McKinsey, worth $100 million, who threw it all away for insider trading. Or Bernie Madoff, whose legitimate business was already making him tens of millions a year. They both had everything they needed, but they risked it all for more money they didn't need. They just had no sense of enough.
And that's really the core of it. The real danger is social comparison. It's when your expectations rise just as fast as your results. You never actually feel like you're getting ahead. The goalpost just keeps on moving, and you end up taking crazier and crazier risks to feel like you're keeping up. All right, let's switch gears and explore a really counterintuitive idea. What if I told you that you could be wrong most of the time and still end up wildly successful? This is all possible because of a concept called long tails. The basic idea is that in a lot of things, especially business and investing, a tiny, tiny fraction of events are responsible for the vast majority of the outcomes.
Let's look at venture capital for a second. The data shows that a staggering 65% of VC investments actually lose money. They go to zero. Failure is the norm.
And this isn't just a startup thing. Even in the broad stock market, pretty much all of the gains come from just 7% of the companies. A handful of massive winners pull all the weight for everyone else. Failure is just a normal part of the process. So the critical lesson here is that success is really a numbers game. Walt Disney produced hundreds of cartoons before Snow White came along and changed everything. Amazon had countless failed projects before AWS became a cash machine. You don't have to be right all the time. You just have to be right on a few really big things. So, let's bring it all together and talk about the real purpose of wealth. Because it isn't about the fancy cars or the big houses. According to Housel, it's about something way more valuable. The highest form of wealth is freedom.
It's the ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. It's having complete control over your own life and, more than anything, your own time.
And that really is the book's ultimate lesson. It's more than financial returns, more than status, more than luxury. The greatest thing money can ever buy is control over your time. That independence, that is the highest dividend money will ever pay.
So I'll leave you with a question to think about. If you had enough money to have complete and total control over your time, what is the very first thing you would do? If you found these Wealth Notes helpful, make sure to share this video, hit the like button, and subscribe to Wealth Notes for more deep dives into the world's best financial books.